It's a pleasure to share with you our today's Bhumi vinyasa flow practice. This is not a traditional Bhumi vinyasa flow. It's also coupled with core exercises, core work, and standing balancing poses. So we started out with a seated Samavriti pranayama with Kumbhaka after inhalation and exhalation. And usually I guide my students through for the first couple of times and then enable them to choose their own appropriate length for their individual count. Afterwards, we went into core activation using a block in between our thighs, establishing the connection between our lower belly and the inner thighs, which will be extremely helpful for most of the arm balances and especially handstands. So finding the deeper roots, the deeper connection within the pelvis between our legs and our core. So I'm taking them here through a modified sit-up very slowly and staying up, so really to deepen and even lift higher. And then using a longer lever by extending the arms to even move deeper into the core. And it's always very interesting to observe people doing sit-ups, modified sit-ups while doing yoga, because a lot of them have been so conditioned with like fitness sit-ups that it's really vital for them to learn not to use their shoulders or their neck, but really to move from their core and center. So the next stage that I take them through is extending the legs up to the sky and putting the brakes on, or hitting the pedal as I call it, by activating your front foot and really pushing your feet and your toes into the sky, into the ceiling, while working with your tailbone, making sure that you curl it slightly up so that your Uddiyana Bandha is engaged. So this by itself is for a lot of students a big aha experience. So I talk them into it so that they really feel the difference between activated legs, through which the energy flows, and the extension that comes with it, and just the lifeless noodles that just, are up there but don't really are fueled and nourished by energy. So I allow them time to feel into that, and then we start with core twists by having one leg descend as we come up. And again, we're moving very slow and from our center to really establish the awareness of the sensation, how the movement feels, and just by consciousness entering the body, it's getting so much more intense as prana starts to flow when we connect really deeply with our physical existence. So for prana to be activated, we need our awareness and our breath, and a lot of movements that we have carried through automatically, or that are more have been established within our consciousness, our physical consciousness, as fitness movements. It's so vital to just take them very slowly and consciously to enable the body to relearn them with a correct energetic alignment and expression, so that we all get pranified while doing them. So the energy in the class today was not too strong, so I didn't go for too long. I take them out here, have them drawing the energy into their center, storing it there. And basically the whole class was based on malasana, as we're working on our legs and on our hips. Most of the class somehow started all around, so all the waves, as Shiva Riya calls it, in malasana. So from malasana we step back into achayanasana, and I can still tell that for students that are new to my class, it's still kind of an epiphany that you're working with polarity here. So really to extend the back leg to its utmost expression and working the back heel and the front knee in opposition. Stabilizing our foundation and then finding the fluid expression, which is so vital off the mat, that we have our roots really stable for us so we can fly and open up to life. So all the movements that we're doing within a prana flow yoga class or a vinyasa flow yoga class, to move out of classifications, is really a ritual for our mind, our awareness, our consciousness, to reconnect meaning with physical movement. And as our peak pose today will be Svarga Dwidasana, or the bird of paradise, I also incorporated into this sadhana a lot of hamstring openers. So here I'm teaching my students to wave the heart forward. And you can also see that for a lot of students, this is quite hard. It's quite hard to find the wave and then the extension, and let your heart lead with the extension. So sometimes students get bored here or annoyed while we're doing that for so long, but I really place the emphasis that it's so vital to find the wave and the extension before you move anywhere else. So here we're flowing into a rhythmic vinyasa between Ardha Hanumanasana with the extension that we just established, and then bringing the whole thing forward into low lunge, flying up, opening the heart, shooting the energy forward, and then opening up the roots again. And again, here it's like a ritual. You have to always consider that every movement is a blessing to you in regards to with what kind of quality and consciousness you move, and also in regards to the earth, in the way you touch her, in the way you connect to her. You take the energies from her and you just let it reverberate through your body back to her. So Parshvavira here, and also you can see the different expressions in the students' bodies, and then taking it up to Vira 1, which was a new transition for my students. We've done that the first time, so I'm showing it again here. And then from Vira 1 we're drawing the energy down into our heart after a short pulsation vinyasa. And bringing the energy forward. As I always say, offer something from your heart. Give it to the world, and then push something back that you don't need anymore. Let it go, move it behind you. Interlace your fingers, your hands, and then open your heart again. And with that openness, dive deep, surrender, bow your head to the earth. So we're flowing here in Waterful Warrior, Chalabhatavira, for a couple of times. Coming up and down. And when I see, of course, that someone is out of alignment, as one student is here, I stop after showing the new students the movement, because when someone's new to the class, they don't know actually what a waterfall warrior is, so I have to show them. But usually then I also take the time to move out if they're not reacting to my verbal instruction, to guide them physically. So that's what I was doing here. So the next step was moving into plank pulsations. And that's new and hard for a lot of students as well. You see students going almost into downward dog here, instead of keeping the long line and just rounding the upper back. And that to me represents the image we all still hold of physical things. What we're actually doing here in pulsation, in plank, is we're working with the energy. So we're drawing the energy into our core, not really changing our posture, and then extending the energy again through our whole being, forward and backwards, before diving down into chaturanga as we do here, and coming up into upward facing dog. So it takes a couple of rounds until students get that it's not about a physical asana, it's not about changing shape, it's about working with pranamaya kosha, with the energy. So before we move even deeper into our practice, we're opening up the psoas, releasing the psoas, and I just love to guide my students into this pose, because for many of them it's so hard to keep the shoulders square while opening the hips. So I really want to emphasize this movement so they can learn the isolation and find stability on the mat and off the mat. So as I teach through pranamaya kosha, I'm always very aware that my embodiment has to be very precise for the energies to fill the field, to fuel the field. But of course, once I held the expression for a while, I also step out of it and move around in the room and support my students with clarity in their embodiment. So a couple of breaths usually is enough for them to feel what they're doing. And as I said, Bhumi was long, slow, with consciousness. So from downward dog here, instead of jumping forward into Uttanasana, which is so ingrained in our consciousness, and especially if we have done yoga for a long time, we use the springy movement to step forward into Ajjanasana, and one more time on the same side, experimenting with the stability and the fluidity, and expressing both elements in our consciousness. Also lifting the right hip, dropping the left hip, extending, and from this extension again, closing the circle, Uttanasana, deep forward bend. Flying up, going traditional here, and then pulling it again back, sealing the deal in Malasana. First wave completed. So we did, of course, the other side here. See the long line here again. We're establishing from the back heel to the top of the head, keeping our foundation utterly still, unmoved, totally stable. just flying with our upper body, expressing the energy that comes from our stability into the space around us. And if there's not the consciousness for the foundation, people used to splay out, so it's really very important to give them the feeling of finding stability within their own foundation. And then moving through Ardha Hanumanasana again, teaching them not to collapse, to just let go and fall into the leg, but really using their core to extend and letting the heart lead you. As I said before, it's very hard for a lot of people they round their upper back, they crunch in their shoulders, they lose the space around their collarbones. So for them to just find the extension is like a whole new world when it comes to the hamstrings. So I really want them to feel that tiny adjustments, and also listening to the heart, giving it space, what kind of difference it makes for the hamstrings and their legs and their foundation in general. So usually we take, as I said, we take some time here for them to really feel into that, establish the consciousness before bringing it forward and up. Flying again in the rhythmic vinyasa between Ardha Hanumanasana with an open heart and waving it forward, coming up into low lunge. Using this movement as a sacred ritual between surrender, gathering the energy from the ground, extending it up into heaven and whatever that means to you. Working with the physical realm and also the spiritual realm. And from there, finding the length again and then whirling it up into Parshvabhira. Vira 1, as we did before. Slow, conscious movements. Again, moving up to support a student. And she's very special because her bones are very special. So she's a person I have utmost respect for, as she always has to work around her bones, and she's so willing and encouraged to really give everything she has. So I really love working with her. Opening her heart here, extending, finding the length, and then falling down, cascading down into our surrender towards the earth. So as I said, everything is a ritual, and the more we are aware of that our body and our cells are actually communicating through the quantum field, through space that surrounds us with the consciousness of the earth, of the living field, the more we see that simple movements, especially if we do them very slowly, are like a living prayer. And that it's really all about the attitude, all about the spirit that we bring to the movement in the moment with our breath and our awareness. And as my teacher Shiva Ria said, without love, nothing is sustainable. So a lot of movements that we know and have practiced for years and years and years, usually we would get tired of them, we would get bored of them, we would get you can only discover physically so much about a certain kind of movement, but when it comes to the energy, when it comes to your awareness, that's an open field. So you really want to connect to this open field and play, so you can sustain your practice in love as long as you are. So here we are moving from Utkatasana and Virva 3 into an interesting transition into downward dog. But before we do that, we're again activating our core very consciously, sucking up the belly, freeing the hip joints so we're not falling onto our leg. And also that is quite hard for a lot of students, and to keep both sides of the waist equally extended. So I give them space and time to experience that in our Bhumi vinyasa flow, flying up into Virabhadrasana 3, soaring about the earth. And then from here, the new element, moving forward on the mat. Slowly, I do this with them very slowly, and coming into Ekabada Adho Mukha Svanasana. So when they've got it, we're going into core pulse here to draw the energy again into our center. Although we're moving very slowly, it's still about core activation. So first core pull straight, knee towards the chest. Second core pull, preparing the consciousness for arm balances in the future. Knee comes to upper arm. Yes, people, take some time sometimes to not mix it up. Inhale, extending again, and then drawing the energy through the midline forward. And from here, again, flowing up into Parshvavira. And from Parshvavira, we go into a rhythmic vinyasa into Parshvakonasana. So we're working with a modification here, flowing several times back and forth. And you can see the students that already have it down, that worked with me here for a while, and the ones that are still learning and integrating. And I also want people to have space, so when they're new, when they're still are challenged by the movements, I'm not usually moving up and stressing them out by immediately correcting them, but allowing them space to just feel and time to just arrive and be present. And when I have the feeling that students are present and that the stress has moved out of their body, it's easier to move up and correct them. And I think it's also more beneficial for them. So here we're working with the hamstrings again to prepare for the final opening. And then taking some variations here to activate different parts of the hamstring muscles, either the medial part or the lateral parts. So this looks pretty easy, but without moving your hips, it's actually challenging. And when I see someone avoiding this challenge by splaying their hips out to the side, I move over and correct them. or just offer support so that they really get the benefits for the hamstrings and not for the hips or any other part. So that's what I'm actually doing here when I'm moving up to one student and helping her to really stabilize her hip while she's moving out to the side. And we're going into another ritual here in this extension as we listen to the earth and turning our head. And people are like, why am I turning my ear towards the earth? But it's really this opening to listen to what earth tells you through your body and through her embodiment. That's all what it's about here. Reading reality, getting the message, and as I always say, as a homeopathic remedy, you are reality's homeopathic remedy. So it's so vital to be able to listen and to be able to understand what reality teaches you and tells you about your own consciousness. After that, we move, as you can see here, into Anahata Asana, heart opening, very slowly again, taking it forward from our core. A lot of space for the heart here in Sphinx. And then another core activation as we set one foot into the floor, the other foot, work with our tailbone and come up into dolphin on our forearms. Finding the long line again. And actually I was planning to do some pulsation here, but people were really tired. One of my students hadn't slept at all due to that. She had a sick family member, so I was not pushing the edge and working slowly and carefully and compassionately. Working with the bhava and the energy that was present in the room today. Prostration, taking the moment to really refill, fill up, release, surrender, let go, be carried. And then from prostration, moving into another back bend, Dhanurasana, with the variation of the inner ankles, which was like a whoa, okay, inner ankles for one person as well. Slowly pulsing here for 3 times, grounding our third eye, insight, understanding, coming up again, flowing down as we find our peak extension in the third round. And then we move through a vinyasa, arriving at the front of our mat and then playing here with a little bit more fire as we go into crow. And I'm teaching here to not lay on your arms. Some people, they really see crow as a resting position where they just find a balance as they drop onto their arms. So for me, it's vital that they understand that they have to draw the energy into the core and not lay on their arms, but that their arms will one day be straight, and that the key to having their arms straight is to be able to draw the energy into your center, and what kind of difference that will make for their daily life and their understanding of reality, and being able to draw energy into their center. So that's what I'm demonstrating here, the 2 variations of crow, one with the wide ledge, the other one with a narrow ledge. And the difficulties in understanding the posture that can arise here. Last round, Dwidasana. As we're pulsing here again, opening our arms wide, working with the hips, preparing the hips, preparing the gluteals, stepping back here into the graceful dancer. Arms coming up, and a pleasurable yet very strenuous side extension as we bend our legs and come up again with an inhale and deepen our side bend with an exhale 3 times. Up again, releasing the arms, bringing them to our heart, and with consciousness stepping back together, releasing our legs before going into a deeper gluteal opening, also preparation for flying pigeon, keeping the back straight. That's why I'm turning around here, so they can really see that it's essential that they have their back straight as they go down and dive deep. Encouraging them to stay at their edge where they're able to keep their heart extended. And then slowly coming up again, moving down, working a little bit more the legs. Here with a yin yoga, a yang yin yoga practice that Paul and Susie Grilly introduced to me, the golden seed variation, which is a beautiful side flow that actually works with a variation of triangle. And Susie and Paul really taught us about the importance of freeing up your legs and arms, especially your arms in triangle, and experimenting with different positioning and what that does to your legs and hips. And it's really a very sensual and pleasurable opening that we're using here. From that yang yin practice of golden seed, part of the golden seed, we go directly after an extension down into Skandasana, opening the adductors, making sure we open our inner hips, the area that we want to be open in before moving into our bird of paradise. So I'm also taking time here to explain the dynamic, the foot of the leg that's extended, that is actually pushing away from you. So you're working into your adductor, keeping your back extended and your heart reaching forward. And then we come forward. One more time. Recall Ardha Hanumanasana. Another wake-up call for the hamstrings for just 1 or 2 breaths. Releasing forward, open, and then moving, preparing for the peak pose with Kranchasana. I'm showing here different variations or krama stages that students can stay in case their body is not open enough, as I'm teaching multi-level here. So I'm showing the first stage and emphasizing the importance of the straight back and the weight that's actually placed forward so the lower back can stay extended, and showing that you can straighten your leg without your back moving or buckling or losing energy, leaking energy. And then we go into a gluteal opening here to release our buttocks, protecting the knee. I'm again showing the students that what they can do, but encouraging them, especially the ones I know, and I know that they can do it, to move their shoulder under their knee and then going into Akabada Surya Yantrasana Compass Pose, which is a supported version of Bird of Paradise that we will do later on, or at least it's a variation of Bird of Paradise. So before offering Bird of Paradise to them, just give them a preparation that will teach the body being fully supported on the earth and finding that opening. Release down, let it go. For a couple of breaths. Rest. And here I'm encouraging another student who was watching to also seize the time and stay in an opening that she can handle instead of just watching and wasting time. Not everyone loves to hear that, but I think it's really important that when we're doing yoga, we're not wasting any time. Moving into downward dog. And from downward dog, we are closing off the whole sequence and moving into the other side here. Finishing this side with Parivrito Dittahasta Paragustasana to emphasize the twisting action that also takes place in Bird of Paradise. And also to, of course, finding balance, preparing the body for the standing balance with an easier asana, and all the other benefits that we know, detoxing, etc., etc. So here you can see me showing Bird of Paradise. Not using any props or straps. So as almost everyone was doing it for the first time, I just told them please watch for the first time, and then you have your space where you can play. And as I said, I told them just use the krama you can work on. Maybe you just find and stay and work on balancing. So with the two students that I know are more experienced and one is a yoga teacher as well, I didn't move up immediately and wanted to, correct them or adjust them. I wanted to give them the space to feel what they're actually doing because I knew they could handle it. So I'm kind of watching here what they're doing while I'm then instructing the more beginner student to how to find her bind and then just transfer her weight. So we're here at the end of Shavasana. We already brought them up again and have them seal their energy so that it's really only accessible to them. Although they're of course free to share it with whatever or whoever they want, but it's kind of energetically sealed. And we finished with also Samavriti Pranayama while they were on the floor. And now here I'm sealing the class with a heartfelt namaste and a thank you to our group, which is a fantastic group, and also to you. Thank you for watching. See you soon, maybe.